Суб Москвы МКС в канале SG1.
Moscow Station, space to ground 1. Go ahead. The parity error is 0.
Отлично, спасибо.
Excellent, thank you.
Так, и значение АРУ по каналу.
And the RU value on channel TK1 is -51.
Отлично, Сергей, спасибо.
Excellent, Sergey, thank you.
One of the external cameras on the International Space Station providing a view of the Soyuz-TMA 17M spacecraft. The deorbit burn now less than 7 minutes from now. Just to reiterate, it will be a 4-minute, 40-second retrograde firing of the Soyuz vehicle through its main engine to slow the Soyuz down by 128 meters per second, enabling it to drop out of orbit for a 53-minute entry back into the Earth's atmosphere and a landing at a snowy and windy site just 78 miles northeast of the remote town of Dzhezkazgan. So everything is in place. Oleg Kononenko strapped in the center seat of the descent module, the middlemost section of the three-section Soyuz vehicle. To his left, Kimiya Yui of the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency, who is board engineer number 1. Strapped into the right seat is NASA's Kjell Lindgreen, who are returning home after 141 days in space on a mission that began with the launch from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan back on July 23rd. At the time of the undocking earlier this morning from the Rosviet module, Expedition 46 formally began aboard the International Space Station under the continuing command of NASA's Scott Kelly, one of the 2 one-year crew members on board the complex. He and Mikhail Kononenko and Sergei Volkov, who arrived on the station back in early September, will be returning to Earth on the morning of March 2nd, Kazakhstan time, the evening of March 1st, U.S. time, wrapping up for what Kelly and Kononenko will be a 340-day mission, a record-breaking mission for International Space Station operations, their one-year mission now in the home stretch. They will not be a 3-man crew for long, however. Just 4 days from now at the Baikonur Cosmodrome, the next trio of residents for the International Space Station will be launched. NASA's Tim Kopra, Roscosmos Soyuz Commander Yuri Malenchenko, and European Space Agency Tim Peake are primed for launch in the Soyuz-TMA 19M spacecraft from the Baikonur Cosmodrome on the afternoon of December 15th at 5:03 p.m. Kazakhstan time, which will be 5:03 a.m. Central Time on December 15th on a 4-orbit, 6-hour trek to the International Space Station to re-up the crew to its normal complement of 6 crew members. Now just 4 minutes away from the start of the deorbit burn, the command, it's an automated entry into the Soyuz onboard computers, a 4-minute, 40-second deorbit burn that will slow the Soyuz down and send it back into the Earth's atmosphere for a landing site 78 miles to the northeast of Dzhezkazgan. The search and recovery forces on the ground in the form of all-terrain vehicles are already in place at the landing site, ready to move toward the spacecraft just as soon as touchdown occurs. And again, this will be an expedited extraction of the crew because of the weather conditions on the ground and the desire to return the crew as quickly as possible to Dzhezkazgan, which would be about a 35-minute helicopter flight, 3 of the 4 helicopters being deployed from Dzhezkazgan, which is 1/3 of the normal complement of helicopters normally deployed for a landing. 4 helicopters will be sent from Dzhezkazgan to the landing site to pick up the crew They will be flown in their Sokol launch and entry suits back to the Dzhezkazgan airport, and then they will undergo medical tests there before they board respective planes, with Lindgren and Yui to board a NASA plane for the flight back to Houston, Kononenko to board a Gagarin Cosmonaut Training Center plane for the flight back to Star City.
Antares, this is Moscow. Go ahead. Is the G3 indicator on for you now? Not yet, but the command is ready to be sent. Copy.
Less than 2 minutes now until the start of the deorbit burn. We'll be hearing Kononenko read out on the loops the chamber pressure and fuel consumption as the 4 minutes and 40 seconds of the duration of the burn tick away until the engines automatically shut down following the completion of the engine firing that will send this trio back towards its landing site in south-central Kazakhstan. Now just 1 minute away from the deorbit burn, everything looking good aboard the Soyuz vehicle. Again, Kononenko, the Soyuz commander, in the center seat, flanked on his left by Kimiya Yui, and on his right by Kjell Lindgreen.
Confirmed, standing by. We've sent the G3 command. Transitioning to monitoring. Copy.
Again, you're looking at the view of the Soyuz-TMA 17M spacecraft. Hopefully, this view will hold in place to enable us to see the beginning, at least, of the deorbit burn.
Fifteen, 19, 19. Ignition, SKD ignition confirmed. Copy.
And Oleg Kononenko confirming the start of the deorbit burn. It started on time at 6:19 a.m. Central Time. Again, this will be a 4-minute, 40-second retrograde firing, slowing the Soyuz down by 128 meters per second, enabling it to begin its descent back toward the Earth's atmosphere.
The first 30 seconds are done. The pressure at the nozzles is 30. Acceleration is 0.45. We have accelerated to 1746. Copy.
достаточно.
1 minute. 13 on the nozzles, 0.46. The burn is 28.3. Go ahead. That's sufficient for the burn. The time on the burn, please. Copy.
Антарис,
90 seconds. 40.40. Copy.
Минута 45. 47,9.
105 seconds. 47.9. Copy.
Две минуты, 54.
2 minutes, 54 meters. Copy.
The visiting vehicle officer at Mission Control in Houston reporting that we're midway through the deorbit burn. All the parameters looking very good. Soyuz functioning perfectly at this time.
Two and a half minutes, 68.19. Copy. Two minutes, 45 seconds, 74.20. Copy. Three minutes, 81.9. Copy. Three 15, 88.7.
About a minute and 20 seconds left in the deorbit burn. Everything looking good. Kononenko reports that fuel consumption and chamber pressures are right on the money.
95.03.
Once the burn is complete, the orbital module will be depressurized at the uppermost section of the Soyuz vehicle. That is done so that it is prepared for the pyrotechnic separation of the three sections of the Soyuz vehicle. That will take place at 6:46 a.m. Central Time.
4 minutes, 109.58.
About 30 seconds left in the deorbit burn. Everything looking good.
4:15, 117.05. Four and a half minutes, 124.5. Main command confirmed. Copy. 127.99. Separation confirmed.
This is Mission Control Korolyov. The visiting vehicle officer reports what Oleg Kononenko discussed just a moment ago, that the deorbit burn is complete and good. Everything went by the book. An excellent deorbit burn of 4 minutes and 40 seconds in duration. So Expedition 45 crew members, Kononenko, Lindgren, and Yui, are on their way home. The International Space Station is currently flying 253 statute miles over the South Atlantic, moving from southwest to northeast in its orbit inclined 51.6 degrees to either side of the equator.
561 in the descent module. Copy. Proceeding per page 110, 250 on the orbital compartment, 760 in the descent module.
Earlier today, of course, prior to the undocking of this trio of crew members from the International Space Station, Lindgren, Kononenko, and Yui, the hatch closure actually occurred very early this morning at 12:32 a.m. Central Time. Shortly afterwards, Scott Kelly posted to his Twitter account, they arrived in space like baby birds, barely able to fly. Now they soar home as eagles. Great job, Kjell and Kimiya.
75.
Scott Kelly posting that tweet of the crew at the hatchway between the Rassvet module and the Soyuz-TMA 17M spacecraft that they climbed into, strapped themselves in, conducted leak checks, then suited up in their Sokol launch and entry suits, preparing for the deorbit burn that was just completed. The deorbit burn occurring on time at 6:19 a.m. Central Time.
Attitude nominal. Copy. Antares, please continue. Keep up with the commentary, even if there is no two-way copy. Pressure is 80 in the habitation, in the orbital compartment, 757 in the descent module.
Flight controllers here in Korolyov urging Oleg Kononenko to maintain a running commentary of activities on board the Soyuz spacecraft. Everything in great shape. Again, the next activity, the depressurization of the orbital module, the uppermost section of the Soyuz vehicle, that will set the stage for the pyrotechnic separation of the three sections of the Soyuz spacecraft, with module separation anticipated at 6:46 a.m. Central Time. We may be passing out of range about 11 minutes from now, 12 minutes from now, at the 150-kilometer mark in altitude of space-to-space VHF voice communication capability between the Soyuz and the Russian Mission Control Center through antennas on the International Space Station, just based on the geographic distance, the geometry of the Soyuz relative to those antennas on the International Space Station. So it would not be surprising or unusual for choppy communications at best, or a loss of communications for a period of time as the Soyuz heads toward the Earth's atmosphere.
Antares, Moscow, could you please keep up with the reports? Okay, we tightened our straps. Copy. The attitude is normal. Copy. Is the SR pressure stable? 759 is the SR descent module pressure. Copy. It's 0 in BO, in orbital module. Copy.
This is Mission Control Korolyov, all quiet on board the Soyuz spacecraft following the on-target deorbit burn that occurred at 6:19 a.m. Central Time, a 4-minute, 40-second retrograde firing to begin the Soyuz's descent back toward the Earth's atmosphere. The next milestone is expected about 15 minutes from now. That will be the separation of the three modules, the three components of the Soyuz spacecraft, the orbital module, the descent module in which the crew is located, strapped in their respective seats, and the instrumentation and propulsion module. The separation of those three modules conducted automatically through the triggering of pyrotechnics that hold the three sections together. The upper and lower section go off to burn in the Earth's atmosphere. The descent module, of course, has its heat shield pointed toward the direction of travel that will serve as an ablatant to repel temperatures that will build up around the Soyuz to about 2,500 degrees Fahrenheit. It will create a plasma trail. The crew on board the International Space Station, Scott Kelly, the commander of now Expedition 46, the fourth of four increments that will span his year in space along with Mikhail Kononenko, will be positioned in the station's cupola, armed with high-powered lenses to try to capture a picture of the Soyuz, as well as some video, perhaps, of it descending into the plasma region. It will be about a 5-minute transit through that plasma region, the most visual opportunity until the Soyuz passes out of range and distance from the International Space Station.
The attitude is within the norm.
The latest coordinates calculated by the flight controllers here at the Mission Control Center in Korolyov outside of Moscow. The latest coordinates for landing would be 48 degrees, 27 minutes north latitude, 69 degrees, 7 minutes east longitude, again placing the landing site about 78 statute miles to the northeast of the town of Dzhezkazgan. The current plan is to try to expedite the crew's extraction from the Soyuz once it's landed. They will do that. The search and recovery forces, Rosaviatsa, will do that by the current plan of deploying only 4 out of 10 helicopters pre-positioned in Dzhezkazgan. 4 of those helicopters all bearing critical recovery personnel, plus flight surgeons and nurses for medical assistance for the crew, who will soon be feeling the first tug of gravity on their bodies since their launch back on July 23rd, 141 days ago. The 4 helicopters will be deployed to the landing site. The crew will be extracted. No medical tent will be set up. The 3 crew members will be placed in each of 3 respective helicopters for the flight back to Dzhezkazgan, where both a NASA plane and a Gagarin Cosmonaut Training Center plane are in the process of being flown from Karaganda to the northeast of the landing site to Dzhezkazgan. This all designed to try to expedite the recovery of the crew in somewhat deteriorating weather conditions with blowing snow and extremely cold temperatures, but moreover, low ceilings, very, very low ceilings of thick overcast over the landing site region in which the Soyuz will be descending a short time from now. Everything is going perfectly on board the Soyuz, all of its systems in excellent shape, no issues being reported by Kononenko in his communications with the flight controllers here in Korolyov. We're inside 11 minutes from the anticipated time of the pyrotechnic separation of the 3 sections of the Soyuz vehicle. That will occur at an altitude of 87 miles above the Earth, occurring some 27 minutes following the successful deorbit burn that has begun the Soyuz's return back toward the Earth's atmosphere. Once the modules have separated, The Soyuz, of course, will be pointed in the correct direction with its heat shield in the direction of travel. That will be followed by entry interface, the actual entrance into the first sensible traces of the Earth's atmosphere at an altitude of 62 miles above the Earth, where temperatures around the Soyuz will build to their typical 2,500 degrees Fahrenheit, creating a plasma trail for about 5 minutes as the Soyuz enters the thickest portion of the Earth's atmosphere. Flight controllers reporting back to the visiting vehicle officer, Heidi Paris, in the flight control room at the Johnson Space Center in Houston, that per the plan, we have passed beyond the range of guaranteed communications between flight controllers here in Koryov at the Russian Mission Control Center and the crew on board the Soyuz vehicle. This is typical. Sometimes ratty communications are possible. Sometimes there is a loss of communications altogether. There's a shot of Heidi Paris at her console watching the data, talking to her counterparts here in the Russian Mission Control Center as they follow the data that is being received from the Soyuz spacecraft as it barrels toward its landing site some 78 miles to the northeast of the town of Dzhezkazgan in south-central Kazakhstan. Once again, you're looking at a view from the Russian Mission Control Center, now a view from the International Space Station as it travels over northern Africa. This view of the Russian Mission Control Center from a camera in the back of the balcony area. That's away. Everything continuing to go well on board the spacecraft.
Antares MCC Moscow. MCC Moscow 1540 35. We closed our visors and sent the command F3. Copy, Antares.
Давление волоса 762.
The air pressure is 762 millimeters. Copy.
As the Soyuz, now just minutes away from the separation of its three modules through automatic command from its onboard computers, we continue to receive great pictures from Scott Kelly, the commander of the International Space Station, on his Twitter account. This one just posted, fair winds and following seas, my friends, and a safe landing. Kelly posting that after showing the Soyuz-TMA 17M as it undocked from the Rosviet module of the International Space Station, the undocking occurring at 3:49 a.m. Central Time, just about 3 hours ago. That preceded the Soyuz executing a separation burn to enable it to open up a distance of some 12 kilometers away from the International Space Station. That was the precursor to the deorbit burn, the firing of the Soyuz engines, and a braking maneuver, a retrograde maneuver, to begin its descent back into the Earth's atmosphere. Once again, this picture on Scott Kelly's Twitter account, @StationCDRKelly, where he has posted literally hundreds of pictures in the first 9 months of his year in space. As we stand by for confirmation of the module separation that's expected just a couple of minutes or so from now, we have reports from Dzhezkazgan that the first of the 4 helicopters that are anticipated to depart for the landing site for an expedited extraction of the crew and a return to Dzhezkazgan as opposed to Karaganda, the first of those 4 helicopters with flight surgeon personnel, medical personnel on board, has departed Dzhezkazgan. Very low ceilings, very windy conditions noted in south-central Kazakhstan at this hour. This landing is occurring an hour and 43 minutes after sunset, the first post-sunset landing, with sunset essentially calculated from civil twilight to midnight. A pre-dawn landing would be calculated from midnight to sunrise. In all, the 6th night landing, or the 6th landing in darkness, the first since November of 2012, when Sonny Williams, Yuri Malenchenko, and Aki Hoshide landed in their Soyuz spacecraft 1 hour before sunrise to conclude Expedition 33.
Inaudible.
So we're less than a minute away from the anticipated separation of the 3 sections of the Soyuz vehicle. Oleg Kononenko, the Soyuz commander, strapped in the center seat of the Soyuz, flanked on his left by board engineer number 1, Kimiya Yui, of the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency, and Kjell Lindgreen to the right of Kononenko as board engineer number 2.
разделение.
We have separation. Copy, Antares.
Oleg Kononenko confirming a nominal module separation. So the descent module now flying on its own, the orbital module and the instrumentation and propulsion module having been discarded on time at 6:46 a.m. Central Time. We're now about 2.5 minutes away from entry interface, where the spacecraft will enter the Earth's atmosphere at an altitude of 62 miles, creating a plasma trail. The Soyuz with its heat shield pointed in the correct direction to repel and ablate the heat that will build up around the spacecraft for about 5 minutes in duration. While we continue to await further reports from Oleg Kononenko, the Soyuz commander, with the Soyuz heading toward its landing about 24 minutes from now on the south-central steppe of Kazakhstan, post-sunset, the International Space Station flying 253 statute miles above the Caspian Sea, as we've lost our downlink television capability for the time being through the tracking and data relay satellite system. So we're continuing to stand by for additional voice reports from Kononenko. The next milestone is coming up in less than 2 minutes, and that is entry interface as the Soyuz hits the Earth's atmosphere. And at that point, the 3 crew members on board the station will begin to feel the first pull of Earth's gravity on their bodies since their launch 141 days ago, back on July 23rd. At about 6:56 this morning, the crew will have their maximum G loads being imposed on them, some 4 to 5 Gs at an altitude of 20 miles above the Earth. And as we stand by for the landing of Lindgren, Kononenko, and Yui, once again, Expedition 46 is formally underway on board the International Space Station under the continuing command of Scott Kelly, the NASA astronaut who has now logged more days in space than any other American astronaut. One of the 2 one-year crew members on board the complex, along with Russian cosmonaut Mikhail Kornienko and cosmonaut Sergei Volkov, who will be the Soyuz commander in March to bring home Kelly and Kornienko and wrap up their year-long mission aboard the International Space Station. Volkov arrived on board the complex in early September. This crew will be joined just 4 days from now by the next trio of residents who will fly to the International Space Station. The next 3 crew members are comprised of Yuri Malenchenko, a veteran about to make his 6th flight into space, a veteran astronaut Tim Kopra, the NASA flight engineer, and European Space Agency flight engineer Tim Peake, who's about to make his first flight into space as the 2nd British citizen ever to fly in space and the first to fly to the International Space Station. They will launch an hour before sunset at the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan on December 15th for a 4-orbit, 6-hour jaunt to the International Space Station to bring the station back to its full complement of 6 crew members. Kopra, Peake, and Malenchenko will spend a half year on board the orbital laboratory.
Unintelligible.
Although we have entered a period of ratty communications with the crew on board the Soyuz, which was expected, we fully anticipate that those communications will improve as the Soyuz nears its landing site in Kazakhstan, with the relay to be established through an Antonov fixed-wing aircraft that is flying in the vicinity of the prime landing site just to the northeast of the town of Dzhezkazgan. That Antonov relays both voice and data communications from the Soyuz vehicle to the flight control team here at the Russian Mission Control Center in Korolyov. The crew entered the Earth's atmosphere about 4 minutes ago. They should be exiting the plasma region about 3 minutes from now. Maximum G-forces built up around the crew, their first tug of gravity against their bodies. The maximum G-loads just a few minutes from now to peak at about 4 to 5 Gs that they have trained for, of course. And after that, the next big activity, about 5 minutes from now, the command to open the parachutes. 2 pilot parachutes will first be deployed, the second of which will extract a drogue chute. The drogue chute then to be released. It measures 24 square meters, slowing the Soyuz down from a descent rate of 230 meters a second to just 80 meters a second. That will be followed by the release of the main parachute, which covers an area of 1,000 meters, slowing the Soyuz to a descent rate of 7.2 meters per second. Its harnesses first allowing the Soyuz to descend at an angle of 30 degrees, that designed to expel the residual heat from its descent into the Earth's atmosphere. Then the Soyuz will be canted to a straight vertical descent in preparation for the firing of its soft landing engines just a couple of feet above the surface of the Earth and the landing site in south-central Kazakhstan. Landing is expected at 7:12 and 14 seconds a.m. Central Time. Again, the landing site about 78 statute miles northeast of Dzhezkazgan, where a reduced number of helicopters, just 4, are in the process of being deployed from the airport in Dzhezkazgan to the landing site, about a 35-minute helicopter ride to try to expedite the crew as they are extracted from their Soyuz vehicle and placed in the helicopters to return to Dzhezkazgan and to be greeted by both a NASA plane and a Gagarin Cosmonaut Training Center aircraft that are in the process of being relocated from what was the staging city in Karaganda down to the new staging point in Dzhezkazgan itself.
$456. 456 is the G load. Copy, Antares. 457. Copy. What about the miss +7? 15:51 is the time of reentry. 4:47 is the G load maximum. So the 3.6 is the G load now. It is decreasing. Copy.
The translation of communications having been restored with Soyuz Commander Oleg Kononenko, everything continuing to go very well. reporting that they are now feeling their maximum G load of about 4 to 5 Gs, and we are now less than 2 minutes away from the expected command to begin the opening of the parachutes as the Soyuz descends to its landing site, again, just to the northeast of the town of Dzhezkazgan in Kazakhstan. This animation depicts the deployment of the parachutes. Once again, the pilot parachutes extracting a drogue chute. The drogue chute then followed by the extraction of a main parachute, a billowing parachute that covers an area of about 1,000 meters, slowing the Soyuz to a descent rate of about 7.2 meters per second. Right before touchdown, the soft landing engines will fire and a final braking maneuver, and the Soyuz will be home.
Copy. 09 is the integral 30 to the left. 1.16 is very strong vibration. 09 is the integral.
Как принимаете маяк?
How do you copy? Beacon, how do you copy us? We copy you loud and clear. We copy you good. Unintelligible.
Just about 13 minutes away from the anticipated landing of the Soyuz vehicle, standing by for confirmation of chute deploy. The voice communications should be established a short time from now between the Soyuz and the search and recovery forces flying in the Antonov fixed-wing aircraft in the vicinity of the landing site to the northeast of Dzhezkazgan.
Unintelligible. We are feeling good. Copy, Antares.
Although we have not received confirmation of chute deploy, the response from the interpreter here in the Russian Mission Control Center of wonderful was a call from Kononenko, which would seem to indicate a nominal chute deploy. We're still standing by for confirmation of that.
Breaking up.
Everything continuing to go on schedule, with the Soyuz expected to touch down about 11 minutes from now at a point
and we're feeling fine.
To the northeast of Dzhezkazgan. Kononenko now reporting that the crew is feeling fine, a clear indication that the chutes were deployed as the Soyuz continues to descend toward its landing site.
And we are feeling fine. That's good.
Kjell Lindgreen and Kimiya Yui just minutes away from completing 141 days in space, and the same aboard the International Space Station. Oleg Kononenko minutes away from completing his third flight into space, and an aggregate total of 533 days in space, placing him 13th on the all-time endurance list. The Soyuz-TMA 17M spacecraft with Kononenko, Lindgren, and Yui on board, descending under its main parachute, gently descending toward its landing site, which is shrouded in thick overcast, windy conditions, blowing snow on the ground. The landing site conditions resulting in a decision a few hours ago to reduce the number of helicopters deployed from Dzhezkazgan to the landing site. Normally, 8 out of the 12 Russian Mi-8 helicopters go to the prime landing site. 2 go to the midpoint between the nominal and the ballistic landing sites in the event of a contingency, which is not the case today. 2 helicopters are deployed near Baikonur at the front end of the ballistic landing zone. But of those 8 prime helicopters, only 4 were deployed in the post-sunset hours as the sun set on the town of Dzhezkazgan because of the deteriorated landing conditions to try to expedite the extraction of the crew once it lands. The 3 crew members will be extracted from the Soyuz, loaded into each of 3 separate helicopters, 3 out of the 4 that will make it to the landing site, and they'll be flown in their Sokol launch and entry suits directly back to Dzhezkazgan for medical testing, and then to ultimately fly to their respective homes. Lindgren and Yui to board a NASA plane for its return to Houston, Kononenko to board a Gagarin Cosmonaut Training Center plane to fly back to his training base and home in Star City. We're about 6 minutes away from the anticipated landing of the Soyuz vehicle in Kazakhstan to wrap up this mission. This landing only the 6th in darkness for a Soyuz in the space station era. The 5th, 5 of those 6 landings were pre-dawn. This is the first post-sunset landing. all coordinated by Roscosmos, the Russian Federal Space Agency, and the Rosaviatsa Search and Recovery Forces that have vast experience in recovering crews at night as well as civil air patrol nighttime operations. We now have reports from the landing site that the search and recovery forces have spotted the Soyuz-TMA 17M under its main chute with its blinking light very visible. So a good sign, as we are now just about 4.5 minutes away from touchdown.
I'm intelligible. Just about 3 minutes until touchdown, everything continuing to go very smoothly. Once again, to recap, at 12:32 a.m. Central Time, the hatches were closed between the Rosviet module and the Soyuz-TMA 17M spacecraft as the departing crew said farewell to Scott Kelly, Mikhail Kononenko, and Sergei Volkov. Leak checks were completed both on the Soyuz vehicle. The crew suited up in its Sokol launch and entry suits, conducted leak checks on those suits. Everything went fine. And then at 3:49 a.m. Central Time, with the hooks open, springs pushed off on both sides of the docking interface between the Soyuz and Rosviet, allowing the Soyuz to undock. Again, undocking occurring on time at 3:49 a.m. Central Time. The Soyuz moving to a position 12 kilometers away from the International Space Station, where it executed its deorbit burn of 4 minutes and 40 seconds in duration at 6:19 a.m. Central Time, resulting in the Soyuz dropping out of its orbit and heading toward a landing site that is complete with a thick overcast in this mid-December time frame, snowy and blowing wind conditions at the landing site, precipitating a expedited recovery scenario that is about to unfold for the search and recovery forces. Only 4 helicopters being deployed from Dzhezkazgan to the landing site to recover the crew. 3 of those helicopters will be for the crew members themselves to fly about 35 minutes or so from the landing site back to the Dzhezkazgan airport, where they will ultimately be greeted by other recovery personnel and the 2 aircraft that will soon fly them back to their respective homes in Houston and in Star City on the outskirts of Moscow.
So with the search and recovery forces in place, we are standing by for confirmation of touchdown. The Antonov fixed-wing aircraft flying in the vicinity of the landing site will first receive word. Once again, standing by for confirmation of the Soyuz landing to the northeast of Dzhezkazgan. That should be occurring almost any moment now. Bringing home Oleg Kononenko, Kjell Lindgreen, and Kimiya Yui, following 141 days in space. This is Mission Control Korolyov, again standing by for confirmation of the landing of the Soyuz-TMA 17M spacecraft. The last word we received was about 7 minutes ago as the Soyuz descended under its main parachute that the search and recovery forces at the landing site had spotted the light flashing on the Soyuz vehicle. Very overcast conditions and windy conditions at the landing site, so we continue to stand by for landing confirmation. This is Mission Control Korolyov. Again, we're standing by for confirmation of the landing of the Soyuz vehicle that should have occurred about 5 minutes ago. Again, standing by for confirmation from the flight control team here in Korolyov with any reports to be received from the search and recovery forces at the landing site, where the weather conditions are fairly harsh in this post-sunset landing scenario. This is Mission Control Houston. We now have confirmation that the Soyuz-TMA 17M spacecraft has landed. The search and recovery forces reporting from the landing site that the Soyuz was found on its side, not unusual for a windy landing condition. That report was relayed at 7:18 a.m. Central Time. However, that's not indicative of what the official landing time might have been. The Soyuz was targeted to land at 7:12 a.m. Central Time. We do not have an official landing time at this point, but the words up on the front screen here in the Mission Control Center, Jest Posadka, they've landed. And that is now confirmed by the search and recovery forces in Kazakhstan, northeast of Dzhezkazgan, that the Soyuz-TMA 17M is back on Earth with Oleg, Kononenko, Kjell Lindgreen, and Kimiya Yui.